Welcome back to another edition of This Week in 3 Minutes. I've called this one M for Mature. Well, gold's been holding steady this week, a little bit up, a little bit of down, just off the mark from 1,700 in Canadian dollar terms, mid-1300s again US dollar. Interestingly now, this is the 5th year in a row gold is up here in Canada. Let's see, big news this week. Venezuela announcing a new petrocurrency. It'll be on the blockchain technology. It'll be bypassing the Washington sanctions and may provide them the means to help pull themselves out of this mess they're in down there. I don't know. I don't think so. Socialism never works. Okay, what else we got going on? Well, the Chinese have once again downgraded U.S. debt. Officially, the new rating coming out of this Chinese rating agency is BBB+, rendering the U.S. debt level worse than Botswana. And then, of course, this week the Federal Reserve is speaking about how if the government doesn't stop its spending, they're going to hit $30 trillion by 2028. Well, apparently somebody at the Federal Reserve doesn't understand the exponential function. When Trump took office, nearing $21 trillion in debt. When Obama went in, it was $8 trillion. When Reagan was in, it was $1 trillion. It took over 200 years and 3 wars to get $1 trillion in debt. 2028, if we see only 30 trillion, it'd be a bloody miracle. But listen to this comment from the Fed. The U.S. may need to more actively consider policy actions that would moderate the path of projected U.S. government debt growth. Well, on one hand, you could say, thank you, Captain Obvious. On the other hand, it sort of hints or alludes that there may be some sort of power struggle between the Federal Reserve, knowing it's unable to contain the situation with the U.S. on a spending spree, and the U.S. government realizing they can't maintain their structure without being able to borrow more money. I mean, we could wind up at loggerheads between the Fed and Washington. No, but I hope that doesn't happen anytime soon, because that could get really, really ugly. This week I was thinking about all this craziness going on and where do you put your money, and it's like some things are just so high maintenance, they're like children. And others they're like adults. They don't require any. They do what they do. They're totally independent, autonomous. They don't need any maintenance. They don't need any care. They don't need a roof. They don't need food. They don't need management teams of analysts. They don't need CEOs. They don't need governments to pay back or be able to borrow money to pay back the original lenders. There are certain instruments out there that to me are just far more mature, and real estate is really, really good. But it's also a lot of maintenance. If it's buildings, there's maintenance there. If it's agriculture, you're dependent on weather. Livestock, you can imagine. I mean, there's a lot of work with livestock. So while real estate is a more solid, more direct thing to own, it is high maintenance. Whereas I look at the metals, gold in particular, and there's nothing to do with it. I mean, you don't have to. It doesn't depend on the weather. It doesn't need a manager. It's not a promise, assuming you own the stuff outright. There's no promise to break. I mean, it doesn't owe anybody anything. So, I just thought, if gold was a video game, it would be given M for mature. It's a very mature instrument that doesn't require any kind of maintenance. And so that's part of the reason why I own it. It's not complicated. Anyways, on that note, have a fantastic weekend. See you next Friday.